Hello! Welcome to my channel if you are new, and welcome if you are not new. My name is Maya, and today we will be going over my May reading wrap-up. On the whole, this was a pretty average reading month. I believe I read about 10 books, 5 of which were physical books and 5 of which were audiobooks. So we had a nice balance there. This was also the month of the Asian Readathon. It was a really fun readathon. I really enjoyed it. The first novel I read this month, guys, gals, and non-binary pals, was My Dark Manasa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. I actually filmed an entire review video for that, which I will link up above. It's primarily spoiler-free, but not entirely. No promises, no guarantees, no money back after 30-day return period has ended. My Dark Vanessa follows a girl whose name is aptly Vanessa, and she is experiencing her life in 2 time periods. One is when she's in high school, one is in like 2018, 2016, maybe it's 2016, 2017, the context of the Me Too movement. So when Vanessa was in high school, she had a relationship with her English teacher, Mr. Strain, and at the time she saw it as a really loving, consensual relationship, but as she's grown up, and specifically during the context of the Me Too movement, she's begun to reevaluate her time with Mr. Strain and reconsider whether or not it was abuse or something she genuinely wanted. This is a really powerful book. Would not recommend it to everyone. It's quite intense. It was very clear that the author grew with this book and that she put so much effort and time into developing the story and the characters, and I really enjoyed it. I believe I gave it a solid 4.5 out of 5 stars. I gave it a 5. Yep, 4.5. That's it. The next book I read this month was actually my first book for the Asian Readathon, and that was Inside Out and Back Again. This novel follows Ha, and Ha is from Vietnam. She lived in Saigon with her family, but in the midst of the Vietnam War, she and her family are forced to flee to America. This deals a lot with topics of immigration, assimilation, and cultural heritage. It also discusses bullying in school. It does all that while remaining to be a lighthearted, really powerful middle grade book. It's quite petite, but it packs a punch. It packs a punch, guys. It really does. Inside Out and Back Again is still one of those books that I know I will return to throughout my life. I gave it a solid 4 out of 5 stars. I found it really powerful, and I'm so glad that I read it again for the Asian Readathon of 2020. Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating by Christina Lauren. I was talking to my mom about this, and I would like to hear your opinion, but so Christina Lauren is an author duo, and the first friend is Christina, and the second friend is Lauren. And Lauren's name is a whole heck of a lot bigger than Christina's. And I know that last names on books are typically bigger, but I don't know. I feel like this would cause some strife in their friendship because ego. Maybe not. Maybe they're just really mature people. Josh and Hazel have known each other since about college, and they reconnect later in life, and they've always kind of liked one another but never wanted to pursue it because either they had something else going on at the time or they just didn't think it would work out. Hazel is an eclectic 3rd grade teacher, I believe. She loves 8-year-olds. She kind of gives off Miss Frizzle vibes, if you know what I mean. Josh is a quieter guy. He is a physical therapist. This is a really cute book. This is probably one of my favorite romances I've read in 2020, either because it was really good or because I've read a bunch of shitty romances in 2020. One of the two. But this one I really enjoyed. I thought it was cute, and the ending made me smile. I read another book by Christina Lauren this month, and that was an audiobook, and it was called The Unhoneymooners. So this novel follows Olive Torres, who has a twin sister named Amy, and Amy has just gotten married to this bro, very much so a bro, named Dane. So everyone at the wedding except for Olive and Ethan, who is the brother of the groom, get food poisoning because those two don't like fish, and it was a seafood buffet. So because Amy and Dane are sick for the time period they had set aside for their honeymoon, Olive and Ethan have to go, and they are mortal enemies. They hate one another. But do they really? Huh. This was a cute romance. Again, I liked this one better, but that one was also cute. After that, I read another romance. Here's the funny thing. Hi, Austin, if you're watching this. My friend Austin thinks I have a thing for romance novels. And I do not, but I have happened to read a lot of them lately. It's just coincidence. Pinky promise. But I'm getting more into them. I feel like I'm broadening my mind.
You must broaden your minds. First, you must look beyond.
What a load of rubbish.
I read On the Fence by Casey West. This novel follows a girl named Charlie, and she is being raised by her father and her 3 older brothers. She is 16 years old, and she is a very, 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 very avidly self-proclaimed tomboy. She loves sports. She refuses to wear any feminine clothing. She thinks makeup's disgusting. Being a tomboy is not a bad thing in the slightest. In fact, I quite consider myself to be a tomboy. But Charlie's problem is that she holds disdain for more traditionally feminine aspects of her peers' lives. Throughout the novel, however, there is a romance in there. I really didn't care about the romance. I didn't actually think it was that cute. But I did like that Casey West incorporated a lot of character growth into Charlie. By the end of the novel, she's realized that femininity does not have femininity. Femininity comes in more than one package, and it is unique to the individual. There is no right or wrong way to be feminine, and there is no need to be feminine if that is not who you are. One problem I had with this book, this is a spoiler, so fast forward if you have not read this yet. We learn towards the end of the book that Charlie's mother has passed away from suicide, and Charlie's reaction to that is anger. That's a normal reaction. Like if you lose someone in that way, it can be really painful, and it leaves you with a lot of questions that are unanswerable, and you feel a lot of guilt, and you might feel anger at that person for leaving you. And I understand that initial reaction. But the book ends with Charlie still in that state of mind, thinking that her mother didn't want to be her mother, that she died by suicide because she didn't want to be with Charlie. And
that's just it
was about the people in her life, and it was like because there was something wrong with Charlie, when in reality her mom was probably struggling really, really much so with some mental disabilities or handicaps. The ending could have been done better. I was disappointed. I was let down a little. I just thought it wasn't a good message to leave the reader with, because people, for the most part, do not choose to die by suicide to seek revenge or to get rid of people in their lives. It's because they have a lot of internal turmoil. The Toilet Club by Amy Tan. Yeah! The Toilet Club follows 4 sets of mothers and daughters. The mothers all were born in China and immigrated to the United States. The daughters were all born Chinese American in the United States. It shows the cultural differences between the mothers and the daughters, their own individual problems, how they don't really communicate with each other very well, and what they can learn about their histories and about their families and about themselves through their culture. It's beautifully written, for one. Amy Tan is a superhero. But for another, at the end of the novel, this is kind of a spoiler, kind of not. You kind of learn at the very beginning. But the main character who we follow, whose American name is June, she travels to China to meet her half-siblings who her mother had when she was still living in China. And I just bawled. I just sobbed and sobbed and sobbed continuously. My little sister is adopted from China, and she really wants to find her biological family. So that's something we've been working towards. We're trying to figure out a way to connect, whether that's with ads from newspapers when she was first found on the streets, or with her birth name, or her province, or Facebook. Facebook's now a way to get in touch with adoptive families and biological families, and I think that's super cool. So far, no luck. We haven't found anyone yet, but it's something she's really passionate about. So to see this character find her biological family in China, I was just sobbing, because I want that so badly for my sister, because that's something that she really wants, and I feel like it's a part of her life that she deserves and will hopefully one day find. Next, I read The Lovely Bones by Alice Sebold. I'm currently lending it to my best friend Lily, so I unfortunately do not have the paper copy at the Mo. The Lovely Bones follows Susie Salmon, who is dead. The book starts off with Susie's death scene / transition into her own personal heaven. And the entire synopsis of the book is Susie watching lives play out on Earth. She watches her family and her friends and the boys she liked in her community and how they all develop throughout their lives. It is incredibly beautifully written. I thought it broke my heart multiple times and stitched it back up, and then it was like, JK, smash hammer, pow!
You know those books?
But it did not feel like unnecessary crying. It was really powerful and I loved it super much. I gave this a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Now, there was one scene in the book that if you've read it, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't and you're planning on reading it, you will. That felt very out of place to me. And it was a little, not necessarily problematic. It was just odd. It didn't fit the theme of the book. And it felt, honestly, a little bit rapey, even though it was consensual. It just felt odd. And if you haven't read the book, this is going to sound super bizarre, but I totally recommend you read it. And then I'd love to hear your thoughts on that scene, if you know what I'm talking about. Because I just felt like it didn't need to be in there. Like, if I were the editor, I would have taken my quick quote squeal and scratched it out ASAP.
Should we start with the youngest? Lovely.
But I don't know. Maybe it had a purpose that I missed, and if so, I'd love to know. Then I read McGlue by Ottessa Moshfegh. This, I've never had alcohol. I am underage. So hence I've never been hungover, but I feel like if I were to be hungover, it would feel exactly like McGlue by Ottessa Moshfegh. This was a trippy book to read. It was rather short. I believe it was only a 4 or 5 hour audiobook. Ottessa Moshfegh's writing, I'm a huge fan. I know it's not for everyone, and a lot of people I've recommended her novels to have not loved them, and that's totally okay. I'm just in love with the way she writes. Moshfegh really, really, really enjoys following just the internal conscious. She likes to follow what a character is thinking and feeling, and plot is a lot less important in her stories. McGlue follows a pirate-ish named McGlue, and McGlue has been pretty much locked in his room on the boat, and he's not sure why, and he wants some rum, and then it turns out that everyone's mad at him and he's put in jail and he's really confused, and then he's told that maybe he might have killed his best friend, whose name was Johnson. And Johnson may have been more than a best friend to McGlue. So McGlue cannot remember killing Johnson. So this whole novel is pretty much his recollection and his memories with Johnson, and him trying to figure out what happened, how it happened, where he fits into the entire picture. It was really powerful, and I loved it. Again, not for everyone, but if you've got 4 hours to spare, it won't hurt. I loved it. The second to last novel I read this month was Before We Were Yours by Lisa Wingate, and oh my gosh. This is a historical fiction novel, which is potentially my favorite genre of all time, and it follows 2 characters. One is in about 1939, I believe, in Memphis, Tennessee, and her name is Rill Foss. She has lived on the river with her father and mother, whose names are Brinny and Queenie, and her siblings for her entire life. They're quote-unquote river rats, but they love the river. The river is their home. Kind of reminded me of Huckleberry Finn, even though I haven't actually read Huckleberry Finn. And, you know, Disney has that one island called Huckleberry Finn's Island. Yeah, the book starts off with Rill's perspective of her mother giving birth to her twin siblings, but there are a lot of complications with her mother's birth, so her father has to rush her mother quickly to the hospital. While her parents are out, the police officers, I was never able to really distinguish whether or not they were actual police officers, come and take Rill and her siblings away from their house and bring them to Mrs. Murphy's house for the Tennessee Children's Home Society. The Tennessee Children's Home Society was an actual organization in Tennessee between about the 20s and the 50s. It was run by a woman named Georgia Tann, and it was set up to be an adoption organization, but in reality, a lot of the time, children were taken away from their families and sold. It was kind of a black market for children. On the other hand, you have Avery Stafford, who is in South Carolina in the present day. Avery Stafford is beginning to uncover some secrets about her family's life after her grandma Judy is admitted to a dementia care facility. She wants to figure out more about her grandmother's life, and in doing so, she discovers that maybe her life story and her family history has something to do with Rill Foss's. It's a really good look at family connection and what family means and the importance of family. It's also incredibly well written. I love historical fiction that's not too fiction-y and not too historically, historical-ish. ish. That way I can feel like this really happened, but I don't feel too tied down by reality. I can maintain a certain suspension of disbelief. There's also a little romance in this book that I loved. I really, really, truly loved it. I thought they were super cute. I won't say who. Don't want to spoil it for you, but it was really cute. And I gave this a 4.5 out of 5 stars. This is one I'll be thinking about for a long time. I'm really interested in the Tennessee Children's Home Society now, and will definitely be learning more about it in the future. The last novel I finished in the month of May was Colorless Tsukuru Tazaki and His Years of Pilgrimage by Haruki Murakami. A hallmark of Murakami's writing is actually like magical realism. He likes to incorporate storytelling and elements of fantasy into his writing, and I think that makes it not only more powerful narratively speaking, but also just way more engaging to read. Colorless Tsukuru Sasaki follows a man named Tsukuru Sasaki, and he feels like his entire life is very empty. He feels kind of like the shell of a human being, and this all started in his sophomore year of college. So, background knowledge. In high school, he made 4 incredible friends. They were inseparable, the 5 of them. They were Sakuru, obviously, Aka, Ao, Kuru, and Shiro, and they were best friends forever. But in his sophomore year of college, the group entirely shuts Sakuru out. He becomes very suicidal and depressed, and he pretty much has to rebuild his life from the ground up because his entire world was composed of these people. Sakuru has just begun a relationship with a woman named Zara, and Zara wants him to connect with his friends and solve his past traumas before they really begin a long-term serious relationship. So this is the story of Tsukuru learning why his friends cut him off, learning to accept the past because it can't be touched, and to truly live in the present, and to discover kind of the ways in which people change, the way that that's okay, and how we have to move on. You can still hurt from things that have happened in the past, but that song is over. You're on a new dance now, and it's time to complete that specific waltz. One thing I didn't love so much about this book is that one character we learn later had an eating disorder, and the way that the eating disorder was written felt very unrealistic to me as someone who's recovered from an eating disorder, but I know that that's something that's different for everyone, so I respect that character's story may be infinitely different from mine. It just didn't feel realistic. It didn't feel like something that made sense. It didn't feel like it promoted stigma or anything. I was uncomfortable with it, and maybe that was just me. Thank you so much for tuning in today, everyone. I hope your May was fantastic, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.